It's a successor to Avengers the Initiative. This is Avengers Academy. And we're changing it up a little bit. Still a lot of the same. So the heroes of tomorrow, how are they going to integrate? How are they going to fit in? Some twists, some turns. Christios Gage, Mike McCone put this issue out. And it definitely has a mission and a mandate. Let's get into it, see how it compares to Avengers Initiative and the other Avengers titles at the time. Hey everybody, this is Perch. Avengers the Initiative was one of those books that had kind of two parts to it. It was the first part, which kind of was born out of Civil War, where you had this Avengers kind of military boot camp type feel. And then the second part was Avengers during the time of Norman Osborn, where you had the Dark Avengers, you had villains running the teams, and you had kind of a lot of perversion of the 50-state initiative and how all that was working out. So after the dust cleared, siege happened, and we're going back to the heroic age, and we're going to do things right. The idea was we're going to have, the heroes of tomorrow, bright, optimistic, characters that we could depend on, count on, so on, and thus led the relaunch to Avengers Academy, which is truly the Avengers of tomorrow. Avengers the Initiative had a lot of familiar faces in it. It wasn't just new characters, but it was, it was a little bit of mixed. Avengers Academy was definitely new characters, new team, and we're introduced to 6 of them here. So Mike McCone's on the art. A very different style from the other books of Avengers, but still clean, looks different, I think does a, Mike McCone is kind of a hit or miss artist. Some people like him, some people do not. But he does not look like he's tracing other faces. That's a nice change from some of the stuff we got. And he does environments well. In general, you get this feeling, and it's hard to quantify this, but you get this feeling like the characters are somewhere, not just kind of standing around in empty panels or kind of generic backgrounds. He gets the feel of the art very nicely put together. So we're introduced to the Vale, is this character, and she's at school, and we're talking about how her powers manifested themselves, and just that she's this very kind of, not a wallflower at school. She, as they say, she's, guys like him don't go for flat-chested girls who live in double-wide trailers and wear clothes from the church thrift shop. This is, she's not one of the cool kids. So she gets tricked, cruelly by some of her classmates and makes a fool out of herself. She wants to just disappear, and then she does. Her power kind of exhibits itself, and she's able to just disappear into smoke. And that's her tragic origin story. She then, she then kind of gets interrupted by Norman Osborn. So during the time of Dark Reign, she was, recruited on and experimented on by Osborn, kind of his thugs, which sets up the premise nicely for today. So 3 months later, she's in Hank Pym's lab. Hank Pym, a completely normal, stable guy who doesn't do weird experiments on people. Anyway, he is basically kind of going to check her out. He's going to see how he can help her. She does have a problem. She's losing cohesion over time, so they need to figure out a solution to that. And we get a little bit of back and forth about how, the powers have changed her. She doesn't need glasses anymore. She's still very insecure. She doesn't feel like she fit in. She's wrestling now with the idea that she might be dying. And she runs off, and this allows her to form a bit of a bond with, Justice, Mr. Astrovik, as they say in the comic. And basically the dialogue is very clever here. It is a nice, refreshing change from some of what we're getting with Bendis. The characters are, and I say Bendis because Bendis was writing the other 2 books at the time, the characters sound like themselves. They sound like they're tapping into history. We go into Firestar and the ex-fiance. We're getting some thought bubbles in this case with captions, which really are kind of highlighting her general insecurity and her feelings of not belonging. This also gives us the opportunity to introduce us to Hazmat, our second new character. She excretes a toxic kind of substance that basically makes exposure to her by anyone lethal. over time. And so she has to wear this bulky containment suit forever. And now why this is, why Reed Richards can't step in here is a good question, but that's okay. She's in this big kind of hazmat suit, and she's bitter, obviously, about her situation. We then kind of, as Justice and Vale are walking around this new compound, they're seeing imagery from the past Avengers missions and some of the big moments. It creates a nice bond and ultimately a nice crush with the two, with her. Sorry, the other way around. We get to meet the rest of the team, and this brings us into Reptile and into Metal, and they're basically reptile, yeah. What am I saying? Reptile. Got confused myself. But anyway, they're doing kind of a danger room, a training kind of thing. Unlike the Avengers Academy, where the first danger room session ended in catastrophe, people getting shot and killed by accident. Here we're able to deal a little bit more with the personalities. Metal is kind of a happy-go-lucky guy, but he's got a very strange appearance. His skin kind of vanished. He's got this metal skeleton type thing. Reptile can make dinosaur parts out of himself. He's an Avenger of Tomorrow. So they're kind of strange powers. It also then gives us the opportunity to meet Stryker and Finesse. And Stryker is a kind of prodigy. He's got some flashy lightning powers, and he's able to he's got a very superhero friendly power set. And Finesse has got somewhat a cross between some Mockingbird, but also she is able to duplicate moves. So very much like a Taskmaster kind of ninja assassin type character. Elektra meets Taskmaster, I think, if you will. So, and very, very competent, very capable. Clearly more training. These are the alphas of the group, whereas everybody else is kind of fitting in. So it gives us a chance to see the team dynamic. We've got some insecurity. We've got some people who are clearly grappling with some bitterness and some depression. We've got the cocky one. We've got it's a breakfast club of superheroes. And they're introduced to Speedball and again Hank Pym. They're kind of walking through some of the Avengers history. They're doing more training. We're getting to see them interact with each other and how it can all work out together. We're introduced to some of the other supporting members of the cast. Tigra is there. Tigra's tail coming from a really weird part of her body in some of the panels, but that's okay. And Quicksilver is going to be here as well to help. And we're getting a sense that there's something else afoot, that these characters are not just a couple new Avengers that are part of a big program. There's actually they're watching these characters. There's more to it. And as they go on with the training, Speedball's being overly kind of hostile and angry with them. And these kids are smart. They're thinking, something is weird here. This leads to Finesse actually reading the lips. Saying, we have to lie to them if they ever find out the truth about themselves, and then, they don't know what the rest of that conversation is. So, okay, they decide we need to sneak in here, do our first kind of mission here. Let's find our permanent records. Let's figure out what's going on here and why these teachers are acting peculiar to us. And they find out the deep, dark secret, and it's not that they're the Avengers of tomorrow. It's not that they're the heroes of the next generation that the Avengers want to make sure get on the right path and are successful. It means the secret is that these are the characters that the new heroes that set off all the alarms with the psych test. They're the ones who could take out a city block. They're not, and it summed up really well in this panel. We're not here because they think we have what it takes to be the next Captain America. We're here because they're worried we'll be the next Red Skull. And they're afraid of us. So as this is kind of getting digested, Vale, who's already insecure, her reaction is, I should have known what they really thought of me. They've been lying to me, which definitely feeds into her insecurities. Vanessa's going, well, they should be afraid of us. She's smiling. And so you have a very interesting dynamic kind of right out the gate of these characters. Very unique power set, very interesting things they're grappling with. And that's the comic. So we don't get the oral history of the Avengers throughout all this. We do get, all things told, about 39 issues or so of Avengers Academy. like many of the other series at the time, we get a 5-issue interruption for AVX. It really did a number on a lot of the books at that time. We also get a few various little things. We get some new characters that show up at one point. Shattered Heroes. We get a kind of the 21st issue becomes also a first issue of a new era where we introduce some more new people to the mix. And ultimately, they do resolve this problem of the characters are, basically they're villains in the making. They find their own heroism. Vanessa tracks down Taskmaster to kind of figure out maybe her origin story, and so there's a lot of parts of this that are really, really well done. Definitely takes these characters through the ringer. They do achieve. Todd Grummett does a really nice story arc toward the end where all the characters take a beating, and X-23 is part of the team at this point and shows up, and they, it does a really good job of actually developing 6 very well-rounded, very fully formed characters with motivations, a different hook. So I was a big fan of this series. I thought it was really well done. And what's interesting is after it concluded, Dennis Hopeless does Avengers Arena, where he takes many of these characters and turns them into a battle royale type knockoff. And the response to that was so pissed because Marvel had done such a good job with many of these characters. What's also confusing a little bit is, as we get into the Champions era and some of the attempts to kind of reach out and find younger audiences, different audiences for comics, I mean, many of these characters that Gage created were just tailor-made for that purpose, for being able to, reach a new audience and be the heroes of tomorrow, give people a jumping on point. But for whatever reason, they were all largely discarded. Hazmat has started showing up in Captain Marvel. Most of the rest of these characters are gone. Some killed, some just gone. And it's a lost opportunity for sure. I look at this series with kind of a bittersweet because there was a lot of effort that was put into it. The stories were pretty complex of everything they did, but in the end, it was is largely discarded as it kind of immediately shifted over into something else. So anyway, it is what it is. That's how it goes. What did you think of this issue? Did you like Avengers Academy? Do you have fond memories of it? And we got White Tiger. We got a bunch of characters. Lightspeed, Julie Power. A lot of interesting stuff was hinted at here, but definitely kind of an odd outcome. For sure, by the time the series finale went along. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, subscribe, click the bell for notifications if you feel inclined to do that. Otherwise, follow me on Twitter at Comic Perch, and thanks for listening.